Hello again, everyone. Edwin Learnard back once again. In this YouTube astrological segment, I'm going to be talking about Ceres in the first house in a natal chart. Now, Ceres in astrology can be connected with how one may nurture and care. Now, given and how one may desire to be nurtured and cared for, but we're talking about as far as where this nurturing is going, since we're talking about the houses now. Being in the first house, the person may strongly nurture themselves. Person might come across on a first impression as being very nurturing and caring. Let's say if this is in the zodiac sign Cancer, it can be done with a lot of really unequivocal love, a lot of dedication and devotion to this as well. But it could also be where one may nurture and care for the grandmother very strongly, people perhaps in their early childhood. It could also be maybe in their nurturing nature might be tied in with new beginnings, such as working as like a home caregiver or nurse or somebody that's in some kind of healing field. This person might be somebody that might be very proficient in the fine art of healing, and it might be a person that really cares strongly and nurtures their physical body strongly. I mean, say if this is in Taurus, the person might really do a lot of caring for their body with a lot of Taurus-like persistence, but maybe done in a methodical manner. Could be working out vigorously, but yet very methodically, given that we're talking about Taurus in that example. And also taking care of their physical health, their vitality, making sure they have the energy constantly to do whatever it is they need to do, and making sure person's not overexerting themselves. Now, Ceres in astrology can also be associated with dissipated self-worth and self-esteem. Now, given that we're talking about the first house, it could be just with the self in general. People might be able to see this, sadly, on a first impression. Say, especially if you have this in more depressive sun like Capricorn, it could be somebody that might feel strongly that they got some kind of restrictions, and or there's something about their appearance that that is restricting, or they feel very despondent about that. It could be also in connection with new beginnings, perhaps not having difficulty in starting new beginnings for whatever reason. It could be just something with the physical body in general that the person is not happy with or satisfied with. Say if you have this like in Sagittarius, and say you have Sagittarius ascendant, especially on top of that, that could be a person that might be a little bit heavier than average, and maybe there's some dissatisfaction with the appearance for that reason. Or even Pisces. Pisces can be a fleshy type as well, and they might not be appear to be well made, or there's something with their body that they are unhappy with, because it might be have Pisces and Sagittarius have a propensity to be a little heavier than average. And again, especially if Pisces is rising, there might be some depleted self-worth in connection with one's vitality or energy level. It might not necessarily be having the energy or vitality to finish tasks. It could be issues with the grandmother or people with the early childhood. Maybe there was some contentious issues with those people, and it leads to some kind of depleted or dissipated self-worth or self-esteem. Now, Ceres in astrology can also be associated with eating issues or disorders that are connected with eating and food. Now, given that this is the first house, you're talking about the physical body. If somebody has this placement and has some kind of eating issue or disorder with eating or food, it might be more prominent. This could also maybe be seen on a first impression and affect the person's appearance more so than many other places. It might even somehow impact their outlook and their outer demeanor and how they're coming across to others on a first impression. Especially, like, say if you have this in one of the thinner zodiac signs like Gemini or Capricorn, or even Aries. This could be a person that might, if they're having some kind of isolated cases, they have an eating issue or some disorder with eating and food, the person might be exceptionally thin, and people might be able to see this energy more readily on a first impression, more so than many other placements. Also, Ceres in astrology can be connected with raising children. Now, it can be at this time, since you're talking about the first house in astrology, and the first house can be associated with your vitality, your energy. Raising children could be one where it might really deplete or dissipate the energy in the physical body. It might take a physical toll on the body, and it could also be the raising children. Maybe it's somehow how you may do it if you are a parent, and it might be somehow tied into some experience with your early childhood. Maybe maybe it factors into maybe starting new beginnings. Maybe somehow it inhibits you or restricts you from perhaps starting on new beginnings. But it could also be somehow connected with the grandmother or someone prominent from your early childhood. It might be that you may require assistance from a grandmother, from someone that was prominent in your early childhood as far as raising children, whether it's through advice or whether it's the physical labor that may be involved in it. Now, Ceres in astrology can also be connected with, how one may be taken, against their will, or being forcibly coerced against their will to do something, or like go somewhere. So it is associated with kidnapping and abduction. Now, given that this is, we're talking about the first house, it might be associated with somebody that maybe the person knew from their early childhood. It could be something where it might be from, maybe what this does, it could be something where it might impact the physical body more, or if this isolated cases, if this person is abducted or kidnapped, it might be more where there's more of a physical injury. I mean, say if it's in Gemini, it might be something connected with the arms or the shoulders or the hands or fingers. It could be, remember that the first house is also associated with defense mechanisms. And the fact is, I'm thinking too that if somebody, is abducted and they have this placement, maybe it does something to exacerbate the defensive energy of the person. Say if this is in Taurus, and especially if this person is Taurus rising, it might be where a person might become, more overly suspicious of others and put on more of a stubborn front in terms of resistance when somebody, like, say, wants to know information as an example, or to go somewhere, something of that nature. But anyway, and it could be and also too, anyway, the next thing up, as far as Ceres goes in astrology, could also be associated with the family connections. Now, given that this is the first house, and it may be where this placement might help you develop your outlook more on life. Your family might figure more prominently in that. People might see that family is significant to you on a first impression. Maybe your family takes their toll on your vitality, your physical body to some degree, but it could also show that you are, it can show that family can be seem very significant to you on a first impression. This could be something where you might have had a strong rapport or connection with them since the early childhood. And anyway, and also, looking at this as well, and of course, look at the zodiac sign. If it's in, say, going back to Taurus, it could be a connection that could be very persistent, and one that's very enduring as well, where you have a lot of loyal and steadfast energy, because you have to, of course, blend the sign in as well. Now, Ceres in astrology can also be connected with dejection, sorrow, and disappointment. Now, given that this is the first house in astrology, it might be tied in to the self. It might be some despondency in connection with new starts, whether the new beginnings, maybe they didn't pan out right for you, or you weren't able to start them, period. Some cases it could be some issues with a grandmother or someone prominent in your early childhood. There have been some contentious situations with these people. It might be tied in with your appearance. Maybe, say if you have this in Virgo, and especially Virgo is rising, maybe you're looking for that flawless appearance, and you're just, you can't quite satisfy yourself and be, have that perfect appearance that you feel is perfect. No matter how meticulously you may dress, you might constantly feel there's something wrong. As an example, now also too, Ceres in astrology can be connected with protective energy. Given that this is the first house, it might be a person that might really be strong about protecting oneself. If this is, it could also be being protective, really, of people that were prominent in your early childhood, and also your own identity. You might be a person that might, really be very strong or put a lot of emphasis on identity theft. And this is again something where you can be very guarded as far as yourself goes. Say if this is in Scorpio, it could be very guarded, very skeptical energy, and really protecting yourself. It might be where you don't really want to divulge too much as far as your personal business, and fear it might be used against you later on. And also again with the physical body, I mean, this is somebody, like, say if this is an Aries as an example, or even if it conjuncts Mars, it could be somebody that has possessions like with gunfire in their home, legal permit, I would hope, to carry them in order to protect oneself, as an example. Now, Ceres in astrology can also be associated with clothing. Now, clothing may seem significant to others on a first impression. It could be where maybe, your clothing, maybe people, it's somehow tied in with how others see you. I mean, say if you're kind of, you dress in a way where you look disheveled, or you don't look like you're a neat dresser, it might reflect you a little bit more than the average person, and people might say, well, maybe this person just isn't an organized person, or they're just apathetic, or they don't care. And say like this is in Pisces as an example, would be a good example for that. But the thing about it is, it could also be where one might wear their clothing and maybe it's strongly connected with one's physique. Say if it's in Leo, I mean, it might be somebody that wears their clothing a certain way to kind of show off, certain, body parts like their arms. If it's somebody that works out vigorously, as an example, a person might wear the tight clothing in order, to strut what they have, so to speak, to flaunt, their body, as an example, show off their physique. Now, hold on a moment, people. Sorry about that, I'm back. But it could also be where it could be that clothing may be given to you strongly by a grandmother or someone that was prominent in your early childhood as well. So now, also Ceres in astrology can be associated with what one may obliterate in order to restore. And since we're talking about the first house, well, I mean, it might be, well, oh, I'm sorry, going back to Ceres in astrology could also be associated with what one may obliterate to restore what one may previously have had. Given that this is the first house, in some cases, sadly, it could be eradicating a connection with someone from the early childhood, maybe even a grandmother, in order to nurture and care for themselves and their physical body. Say, for example, these people were taking a toll on them physically, and they were dominating their time or their existence, as an example. Anyway, people, that'll conclude this YouTube astrological segment. Until next time, people, Edwin Learnard saying stay well.